Recording. All right, here we are on Aleph of Adar. Of course, Aleph Adar itself is Aleph Dar, right? The Aleph, the Alufa Shel Olam, the master of the universe, the singularity of singularity, the one and only HaKadosh Baruch Hu dwells Dar in this month, and this is the Aleph of the Aleph. So, has to be a good day. A Yom Yom. A Yom Yom's a very short day. And to tell you the truth, it's so short, I have no idea what I can read it, but I have no idea what it means. In Yalav Yavoy, right? Yalav Yavoy in what we say today and we said yesterday in Rosh Chodesh, after we say which he gives chen and chesed and mercy and all good things, b'yayim in a particular day, we have a choice of days, Yom Tov, Matzos, and today Rosh Chodesh, and then it says Zochreinu boy Elokeinu boy. Hashem, we should remember Hashem in it, l'toiva, in the day, or bring Hashem into the day, l'toiva, for good boy. And that vase, or put it this way, that vase has a pintle in it, which makes it a vase. And the next phrase, ufogdenu voy livrocha, and let it be appointed for a burcha, and that vase has no point in it. Ufogdenu voy. And that is the Yom Yom. We can make of it what we will. I actually, it's occurred to me that I've never looked for a pirush on the Yom Yom. If anyone knows of one, please let me know. But he just says it straight, and there's no explanation about it. Boy, the difference between boy, nikud, and boy without nikud.
I have a book at home that has like extra things on the Yom Yom.
Can you put your finger on it quickly?
Oh, Moshe, where's that book? No, it's this one.
Oh. That would be good if you could.
Let's see. Because you said that the Rebbe's brother, when he saw the Yom Yom, he said, I knew my brother was brilliant, but I didn't know he was that smart.
Exactly.
So we need to understand this better, I guess. Right. Bless you.
We need to understand it at all.
Right. Okay, Yud
Gimel. Aleph Adar Sheini.
Gimel Adar Sheini, Beis Adar Sheini, Aleph Adar Sheini. Okay, to fill in the background, this is what they write. In the Holy Tongue, every minute detail of spelling and pronunciation is regulated by clearly defined grammatical. Oh, they're just explaining what we already know. In the above case, for example, the presence or absence of the dagesh in the initial letter Beis is determined by whether or not that letter appears at the beginning of the syllable or the word or phrase. The letter Beis is one of 6 consonants to which this rule applies. In the phrase Zochreinu Hashem Elokeinu Bo, the last word begins with a dagesh. It's supposed to not begin with a dagesh. The last word begins with a dagesh because it appears after an implied comma and thus begins a new phrase. The pause preceding the new phrase is clearly indicated in the fully punctuated English translation. That was the parentheses. In the phrase ufakdenu voy, the latter words does not begin with a dagesh because it is semantically continuous with the previous word. So this is all about whether it's
grammatical. Yeah, but it's in some insight. Ufakdenu voy means there's a connection between it and the appointedness.
Oh.
Right, and previously. The boy indicates what? Some separation?
It's a new phrase. Yeah, like it's a new,
All right, that gives us a little bit more. Okay. But he doesn't explain beyond that, huh?
No, that's all up to us.
Okay, so it's good. It's up to us. We can do it. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Refuah Shleimus.
I guess since I had my mic off, I'll go Menachem Yehuda Nisan ben Rezel Tzivya and Dina Kolka Bat Yehudit.
Amen. Refuah Shleimus v'Kodesh.
Yehuda's Golda Bas Elisa Chana and Yeshua ben Saraleah Baruch Binyamin ben Rachel Blima, El Rachel Basaliza.
Amen, amen. Anybody else? Okay, lessons in Tanya. Here we go, continuing the thought on page, top of page, yeah, top of page 444 in lessons in Tanya. And in Likutei Amorim, in the middle of the page, in Perek Lamed Daled, really kind of in the middle of the second section. Okay, so we have learned again, but here very explicitly, we've learned, when I say again, the again is that we've learned quite a few times in many contexts here that the idea or the inyan or the meaning or the purpose and reality of having a godly soul is that godly soul in the vernacular is a chelek elakamemal, it's a part of God, which means in the language close to yesterday's Tanya, that the spark of godliness, which we call the Shekhinah dwells within us because we've learned in other places, right, and particularly many sikhas of the and Mamorim of the Rebbe, that when the Chumash says, Asur leMikdash, build for me a temple, and then goes on and says in Sefer Shmois, Ushechanti b'seichom, and my Shekhinah will dwell within it. Chazal, the Rebbe brings this out, and all the Rebbe bring this out in many memoirs. The Chazal, who coined that phrase, didn't say the Shekhinah dwells within it, meaning the temple. They said b'seichom, within each and every one of us. So we learned yesterday that since we had an infusion, and I corrected myself yesterday because I didn't like the word, I don't like it today either, we had an awareness implanted in us of the Shekhinah, of God's presence at Mount Sinai. But we were not fit vessels for that. Our bittul, as we've been learning over and over again, our openness, our ability to receive that light hadn't been cultivated yet. So as a result of that, the souls, porchon nishmas, and the souls flew out of our body, and God had to restore them into our body. However, since Matan Torah, we have been given mitzvahs to work on our kalim particularly. The light is always there, but on our kalim, on our vessels, to be able to contain it. And when I say contain it, I mean to live with it, live with the awareness of it, live with the power of it, and utilize that power to express godliness down here in the world below. Okay. Then the temple was destroyed. So what are we left with? One thing I would like to mention, I may have mentioned it before, but I saw recently in a sikha from the Rebbe on the last two parshas, V'yakel, well, and now coming with Pekudah. But I think it must have been V'yakel because we haven't done Pekudah yet. But the word Mishkan is the same exact letters as Mashkan. Mashkan is a piece of collateral. When you borrow something from somebody, and the person wants to feel confident that you're going to return it, the person requires a mashkin. He takes something of value that you have and holds on to it, so that when you return it, it will be given to you. And that's a metaphor. Hashem didn't destroy the temple, the Mishkan. He took it as a mashkin. He took it in turn on up from this planet Earth and took it into himself. And he's waiting and yearning for the time when he can give it back to us, because we've returned what's the loan. The loan is, I've given you lots of things to do, and they're borrowed from me because they all come from my will. These are called the mitzvahs. You've taken, I've given them to you, and I'm waiting for the time and hoping for the time, and I'm going to help you, God says, with the time when you can restore that presence of myself down here below, and then the Mishkan will automatically descend because it's yours, you Jewish people, in the first place. Okay, with that intro, we can start. Okay, now I'm reading in the Tanya. From the time that the Beis HaMikdash has been destroyed, meaning, as we just said, taken from planet Earth and brought back into the embrace of Hashem up above in the realms that we are not so cognizant of, but there it's waiting for us to fulfill Hashem's will to bring it down. From the time it was destroyed, so the Chazal tell us that the only place that God's presence does dwell down here in Earth, planet Earth, while the Beis HaMikdash is up there as a mashkin, as a correlate, as a collateral for our work. Yeah. So the only place that Hashem is present, the Olamai in his world, where we'll find the present of the Mishkan, and where do we find his dwelling place? In the place of where he sits, Hu Yisborach Yisborach. Where does his blessed unity sit? Question mark. Answer: the Arba Amos shel Halacha, in the 4 cubits of Halacha. So what does that mean? 4 cubits of Halacha. You know that, and it's from Gemara Shabbos. 4 cubits, Dalit Amos. Anyone want to offer what you understand to be the meaning of Dalit Amos in Shabbos? Okay. So a person can walk Dalit Amos in Rishus Harabim. A person can carry something in the public domain up to Dalit Amos. And after that, then you're chayiv for carrying in the public domain. But the Dalit Amos is, the way I would put it, is the private space that every person has in the public space. Right? You are walking with you, Dalit Amos, always recreating, and this is an interesting thing. Every step you take recreates the beginning of another Dalit Amos, right? Dalit Amos is your private space, because it's not carrying from, remember, what's carrying? It's taking from one domain into another domain, right? You carry with you a kind of Rishus HaYachid. That's why they call it. It's an individual Rishus, but Yachid, right? We have it right on the page here. Yechudei Yisborach. You're carrying with you the unity of Hashem, every Dalit Amos. That's your private space in the public space. And everybody is carrying that with them. So it's a play on that. So where do you find Hashem? In the Dalit Amos of Halacha. Now, Halacha is also important here, because we have a drush in our siddur here. I don't know if I can find it quickly. Very quickly here. Yeah. At, right before the Kaddish Rabbanim, before Aleinu, it says, Tana Rabbi Eliyahu. They learned that the Tana Rabbi Eliyahu from the Gemara. He says, Kol Hashena halachas b'chol yom. Anyone who learns halachas each and every day, tuftach le'shehu ben olam haba, is promised to that person that he is that he has olam haba. Each and every moment that a person dwells and learns halacha, it's promised to him that he is shahu, that he is ben, a son of olam haba, meaning participating. I mean, the plain meaning he's going to get olam haba, but the literal meaning is promised to him that he's shahu ba, that he is a ben olam haba, that he is a child of the future world. Shenemar. Now, here's the drush. Shenemar. There's a pasuk that says, "Halichas olam loy." The goings, halicha means to go, lech. Halichas olam loy. The goings of the world belong to him, meaning to Hashem. He's in charge of the way everything goes. And the drush, the midrash says, Al tikar halichas, don't read goings, ela halachas. The halachas are the way that Hashem has given to us to act in accordance with the way he wants the whole cosmos to act. And we have a private domain in that. Just like one of the laws of Shabbos, we have our private domain in the public domain, in which we are united with the way in which Hashem wants to, and is running the world through the Dalet Amos of Halacha. Now he's going to go back, and I'll be back inside, and he takes it very literally. And these are Dalet Amos of Halacha, Shehu Ratzoni Yisborach, because the 4 Amos of Halacha, the Halacha, the Halicha, the going space, which is our Dalet Amos, our private space of Yehuda Yisborach, of God's unity, is when what do the halachas do? They are the place of Hashem's ratzon, where Hashem expresses His will, the hachmasai, and His wisdom. Amlabashim behilchas aruchas lefonenu, which is enclosed in the halachas which are spread out in front of us. And therefore, so after a person deepens himself, his thought, in the inyan of bittul, of self-nullification, which we've always been touching here, is opening oneself up, thinning out the thick self, and allowing the fire of the godly soul self to burn forth. So when a person deepens his thought in that, if he each one according to his or her ability, Zeis Yosef Alibo, this is what you should put to heart. Kimahus since our mind, no matter how smart we are and how big a genius we may be, our mind is small, our intellect is small. And we don't know where our soul comes from. Very few of us are explicitly, openly reveal the root of our soul in the highest singular level of the roots of all souls. Each one of our souls are, let's put it this way, the proximate source of our soul. Most of us lower than that, a derivative from that. And no one knows really where your soul comes from. But we do know that the soul itself is that, and this is one of the other things to think about the expression chelek elokam emal. It's rooted in the Shekhinah, and rooted, the Shekhinah, the initial divine presence. And it's rooted even higher than that, because the Shekhinah itself is derivative from a higher level of Hashem, right? But we're in what's called a chelek. We are a portion of that. We're not something that lives with a sense of, or at least not all the time, and hopefully even some of the time we do, but generally not with the sense of no difference between me and the Shekhinah. Most of us don't have that experience, at least not all the time. It's an experience that we are progressively making possible through our avodah and our avodah shebalev, avodah shebamoyach, and avodah of hisbaininus. We increasingly are trying to make that, and I have the ability to make that possible. But generally, or in truth, every soul is just a branch of that, right? And it's none of us really know the shoresh nishmasay. I'm now back reading inside, and therefore each of us, there's a certain smallness, which means a certain inability to contain and be completely given over to become a chariot and a dwelling place for Hashem, be'emes lamitoy, in truth of truths. Well, he doesn't say the rest of it. Because no thought, now this is in the domain of thought for sure, in the domain of seichel for sure, we can't have that experience. Because seichel by definition is a very far distillation and shrinkage and almost incompatible, meaning a change of state completely from the ayin to a yesh. So our minds, our intellect is not going to be that place. However, I got to put this in, that the top of intellect, which is Chokhmah, has a window into this ineffable truth, this Yehuda Yisborach, this blessed sense of unity. And it comes through that. And not only it comes through that, but Moyach Shalit Alalev B'Tol Doisai, the flow of the ayin into the yesh in chokhmah, the flow of God's sense, of the sense of God's unity and our connection with God's unity flows through the mind into the heart. B'toldoisei, that's our nature. We just have to awaken our nature. But thought certainly is a small thing compared to, like as the yesh, as any yesh is a small thing compared to the ayin. So our thoughts are small. No thought back inside, because no thought the like tefisa can grasp him, umasegis boy, and no thought can get a hold of Hashem Himself, be'yizborach, klal b'klal, at all, at all. Thought cannot grasp Him at all. Okay, but where is He grasped? The dalet amas of halacha, the private space in which Hashem has invested His will, and not only His wisdom, but His will. So thought cannot grasp Him at all. Shum hasoga ba'olam. No understanding in the world can contain God. I mean, just by definition, world is olam, concealment, and God is the ultimate of disappearance, meaning total revelation, total light, which has no differentiation whatsoever. It's a very big paradox here. And some people have heard me say, wherever you find paradox, you'll find God. You have to hold infinity in the palm of your hand. You can't. It makes no sense. But you can, because the palm of the hand, the smallness of the smallness, another way of putting this is, think about the name Yud Kei Vovke. The origin of God coming in, of allness coming into nothing, is the smallest thing there is. It's a point, the Yud. The Yud is the beginning. And why is that the truth? Because the Yud is I'm just going to say something which is self-paradoxical. The Yud is a space of no dimension. The Yud has no dimension. And what is beyond dimension? The allness, the everything. So we can't grasp it. We can't talk about it in anatomical terms or dialectical terms, but it's there and present where? In the pintala, the Yud, the pintle of the Yud, which is inside of us, but not in our understanding, not at all. And with understanding, you're not even getting a trace of it, really. And certainly, you're not getting nearly what the avos were able to get, the fathers and the mothers, with their, let's go back to Adam Arishan. Adam Arishan, he was able to get it without getting it. You know what I mean? Without trying to understand it, he had it. It was given to him. A light, the supernal light, or which was too big to be contained in physical things, which ultimately got hidden in the Torah. But he could see it. Seeing it, you can do. Understanding it, you can't. Because hasaga is by nature a very analytical process, a very detailed process. And God is not in the details, though He is in every detail. Again, another paradox. So, the mind is not the place, not a shemetz b'nei, not even a trace of what the Avos and the prophets did. Back inside, and if you're here with me with lessons in Tanya, with a second on the line on the bottom. Therefore, so what am I going to do? We have to make a dwelling place for Him. Now, again, He dwells within us all the time. We have to make we have to bring forth our ability to know what's that pintal yid, which is dwelling within us all the time. We have to take the mishkan, the collateral that He's holding inside of Him up above, and bring it down to earth. And we can do that. And how do we do that? The path to doing it is, as he says, ha'oisik b'talmud Torah, occupying oneself in Talmud Torah, because the private space of Hashem, where He really invests what He wants about everything, is in the Dalet Amas of Halacha, as we said above. So take the time, which Baruch Hashem, we're taking this time every day, to be oisik b'talmud Torah, to be occupied in Talmud Torah, kifi haponai, according to one's free time, shali. I know this is something you talk to yourself and say, I will do this each and every day according to my free time. B'kavias itim, by fixing times, b'yoyim u'balayla, in the daytime and in the nighttime. Yedas hanesina l'kol echad ve'echad b'hilchos Talmud Torah, according to the opinion that's given over to each and every one of us explicitly, if you open up the Shulchan Aruch and learn the halachas of Talmud Torah. Kamman Rizal, and the sages have said, afilu perach echad shachris, even learning one perach each and every morning, or at least a piece of a perach, as we're doing now. Ubezeh yismach liboy, and knowing now what we know, which we didn't know before, or hadn't maybe thought about, or maybe had, but at least it's on the page today, that this is the private space in which the Dalit Amos, in which Hashem dwells within in each and every one of us. This is the place of the temple with each and every one of us, each and every day. Ubezeh yismach liboy. With this, one's heart could, should, and could become rejoicing, glad. V'yagil, rejoicing and glad, rejoice and glad. V'yiten hedo al chelke, and we should give thanks on that portion that we have, that chelek elokam, the portion of godliness that's within us, the chelek of God Himself, which is given into the Torah, which we are connecting with. The simple, and this should bring forth from us, and if we pondered this a bit, I think it would help, because the moyach shalat al halev and bina liba, the understanding of this goes into our heart, and it will bring forth a simcha, a great joy, batuv levov, with greatness, with joy and goodness of heart. Al shezoch aliyas, from what? Just from the fact that we merited, and we merit lies ushpazichon legavura, to be hosts, like a host. The shvichidzon is an Aramaic word for like a host in an inn, right? He hosts everybody. We have merited to host the legavura, the Almighty, pamim, at least 2 times a day, pamim b'chol yom, 2 times a day, kifiyah es, according to the time that's given to us, v'hapanai shalei, in the free time we have, Kimatzes Yodeh, according to our capacity, Hashahirchiv Hashem, which Hashem has given us broadly, whatever capacity we have, whatever time we have, and the will to do this. That's today's time. Okay. Comments? Questions? I just have to remark, some of you may be aware, and I've sent out something to a few people here. Last night there was a session here in Crown Heights, exploring in very personal terms the book that Meir Abisara wrote called The Possible Man. And so I've been living well, over the whole weekend, well, actually, because some of the people involved in that have been guests in the house, with this notion of possibility. And in a certain way, I think that's what this piece of Tanya has been all about. There is something here that's the given, right? But in that given, there are infinite possibilities for what that givenness, meaning the givenness, the spark of God that's within each and one of us, infinite possibilities of how that spark can be expressed, how that spark can be the source for a light to another spark, and to another fire. And so the notion of approaching one's Yiddishkeit, and here particularly I'm meaning all aspects, from the mitzvahs that we do, to the hisbaininess that we do, to the davening of God. These are all mitzvahs, but I mean the practical things we do, lighting Shabbos candles, the internal things we do, hisbaininess, davening, the learning that we do. All of these are latent with possibilities. And wherever we're holding, there's always a possibility for a future that's much greater. And the future that's much greater becomes a possibility for something infinitely greater. So with that lens, I think the Rabbi pretty much has given us that lens right here. He said, there's something inside you. Just focus on it. Know, first of all, what it is. It's the will of Hashem, which is, and it's inside of us. Take advantage of it. and let first of all, let yourself know. Let it be a healing for yourself, and then let it be a healing for the world around you and for the world at large. All right, I've spoken enough. Anybody want to say anything? Okay, ubechein. So what? Therefore, having said this, learned this, taught this, what will we do in the next day, in the next moments of today? Come on.
I guess it's about you. So, this idea of setting up, regular time. So obviously this class is one of them. And I have to say, I'm really grateful that I've been able to institute having a set time. I never really had a set time. I always learned, but I never had a set time. But this idea of the set time, and this week's sikha from the sikhas in English was also about this idea of you yourself make a sanctuary by learning Torah for Hashem, which helps, I guess, it's my understanding, if I understood the Sikha at all, is also creating the third Beis HaMikdash.
Sure.
We're actually creating that by having Hashem in our sanctuary, in us as a sanctuary.
Right.
So I guess here it also adds night. Well, I don't know if I have that at night, so maybe that's the bechein. I have to start looking.
Okay, that's excellent, excellent. Truthfully, I had the same thought. I mean, I have shiurim at night, but someone particularly, a bunch of people asking me could I do another class? And I'm thinking maybe this is the impetus that will allow me to do it. We'll see how that goes.
I always thought that the set times for learning were specifically applied to men.
Oh, and now you learned that it's not, right?
Well, no, I'm asking actually.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. First of all, women are mechuyev in Talmud Torah, right? It's an obligation on women as it is on men. Yeah, the content and this is different for men and women, but do know, number one, that women have an obligation, the same obligation as men, to learn Torah. So with that, this totally applies to everybody. Fixed times in the morning, fixed times at night.
But there's many times in a woman's life when she can't do that and she's exempt from time-bound mitzvahs.
Yeah.
So, so at the same time.
Right.
Like both are true.
Both are true. There's a wonderful, both Shnehem Emes. This is one of the things that I came across early in my development, in my progress of learning here. I would see something in Torah that said this, and and I'm used to coming from an analytical world where, okay, if this says this and this says that, that's called a contradiction, right? And in Torah, it's not, because it's all coming from one Hashem. It's just two viewpoints, like Hillel and Shammai. They're both true. Okay, so how do you say? Well, one applies to this situation, one applies to another situation. And in the case of our discussion here, one applies to men and one applies to women. That's about what you need to learn, right? But everyone is obligated to learn Torah, at least something in the morning, something at night. That's the minimal. Yeah, okay, but not for specific times, The evening is long. The morning starts after midnight. So it's not something so specific that it has to be done exactly at this time. But yeah.
And just to add there, I know that some people hold women do have to daven, some hold they don't. I know Chabad, I think women do, but for sure we have to say Birchas HaTorah before we learn. So that's
yeah, for sure. And avodah shebelev, which is, of course, is technically davening, but Avodah Shebelev is work on your heart, work on your levels of intuition, and work on your levels of emunah, levels of betochen. And that's those are some mitzvahs are constant mitzvahs. They'll be done anytime and every time. Okay, anybody else? Okay, see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.